My first car was, I think it was a '93 Honda Prelude, two-seater, stick shift. And it was an awesome car, you know, it was a stick, I like that, but it had a sunroof that leaked really bad. And so my back seat would get soaking wet every time it would rain. I started off, you know, building like RC model airplanes, gas-powered airplanes, and my dad and I would go fly those. And I got a little older, like I guess 10, 11, 12, and I started building the RC cars. You had to build them one piece at a time. Every suspension component, the A-arms, the shocks, you had to fill the shocks with oil. It was just like, you know, building one of these cars. I think that's how I transitioned into this, is you know, growing up building RC cars with my dad. And then I got the first car, a muscle car I got was a '68 Camaro, and man, it was on after that. For a living, I've worked in IT my whole life, like 22 years. Was building and selling computers out of my parents' house when I was a teenager, and worked in corporate America, and I started my own consulting business, let's see, that was 10 years ago. I've also spun up a non-profit, and we give away laptops to people that need them. I play in a band called the Last Chance Riders. But yeah, since COVID hit, that has not been going so well as far as the entertainment industry. I had a few Camaros, a '68, a '70, then another '68, and then I sold a '68, and I wanted something different. And I started looking at Pontiacs. I got a '69 GTO, and before I knew much about racing, I tried to get the '69 GTO out on the track, and man, that thing's a boat. I mean, it's a big car, you know? So then I started looking around for alternative Pontiacs, and the Trans Am was, I mean, that's the perfect car, you know? 1970 SCCA Trans Am race series is kind of the late '60s, early '70s is when all this originally started. Man, I searched for like 2 years and found an original 1970 Trans Am. I was limited in the modifications I could do to that car because it was original. I didn't want to mess up the pedigree of the original Trans Am. So the car that you see in the video behind me, it's a 1970 Firebird. A base model Firebird is way less valuable than a Trans Am. So with this car, I could go, you know, to the extreme. For example, cutting the fenders in half and the wheel wells in half, and literally widening the car, welding in a full cage, cutting the trunk out and putting a fuel cell in there. There were no limits because there was no pedigree to the car. But you know, I found all the original Trans Am, like that's an original Trans Am shaker from 1970, and the wheel flares and the spoiler, that's an original Trans Am hood. So I found all the pieces around the country and basically made a Trans Am. So I guess you'd call it Trans Am clone. Me personally, I think the front end of the Firebird, the nose of the Firebird that's where it's at. I think it's an awesome looking car. I mean, yeah, there was a very specific reason I chose Speedtech. The Speedtech, there's minimal welding that you need to do. For example, the upper shock mounting location on the front of the car. See, I'm running a stock subframe. So I just had to cut out and weld in upper shock mounts. And I had never welded before building this car. And then the rear of the car, you don't have to cut the car to pieces. You weld in, I guess you would call it a cross member that relocates the rear shocks. And that's 2 weld strips right across the edges to weld it to the rear subframe. So that's why I chose it, because my welding skills were very limited, and a lot of the Speedtech stuff is bolt-in. You don't have to be, you know, a master fabricator. Minimal fabrication is why I chose Speedtech. Also, as far as the torque arm, I did a lot of research on the torque arm suspension, and it is a great suspension setup. So I called Speedtech after doing research. I talked with Jay Weir. He spent so much time going through all the details with me, and basically I don't know if this is still a package, but it's called the Track Time package, which it's full suspension setup from the front of the car to the rear. Upper control arms, lower control arms, ATX spindles. Then it has the torque arm and all the mounting brackets for the rear end. So yeah, it's a full. Now I didn't go with the extreme subframe because that's designed for LS engines, and I'm running a old school small block, Chevy small block. So I have the stock subframe in the car. Otherwise, I think I would also choose the extreme subframe. The engine was actually built in Dawsonville, Georgia, at a machine shop, Johnny Thomas Racing Engines, and he was in with the Elliott family back in the, when Bill Elliott was running NASCAR. And it's a 414 cubic inch Dart Little M racing block, runs on 110 octane, and it was actually dynoed on Bill Elliott's old analog dyno. It's funny, it has like an analog gauge and a 286 computer with a green screen. As far as the brakes, it's a Willwood brake setup, but I specifically asked for a larger piston diameter on the 6-piston brakes so I could get more surface area, more pressure. And the brakes are incredible. The main focus on the build was for safety. So, last year I was running with a Lexan windshield, which they kept dinging me in D&E, but that was for safety. So I've gone with a regular windshield now, but it also has a fire bottle behind the seat with nozzles in the engine compartment, on the fuel cell, and on me. I mean, because every year there's a couple of cars that catch on fire, it happens. Also, I want to give a big shout out to the guys over at Speedtech. They've helped me along the way. I've been running the car now for 3 years. We're at NCM today. I'm doing good. Hopefully I'm going to get the points I need to get to the Optima Invitational. I went to the Invitational a couple of years ago, and Speedtech was there, and man, the guys were awesome. Like, I'd come off the track and they were at my car taking tire temperatures for me and saying, okay, we need to let some air out, we need to add some air in. And I can't tell you how many times I've called Jay and asked for some advice on tuning my suspension. They're extremely patient and helpful, and it's great to work with those guys, and the car is performing outstanding.